This is a Rough Tiger production.
And you, and you, and you, and you were there. Some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful.
Hey.
Guten Abend.
Hello. How are you?
I am well. How are you, Bryan?
Doing great.
And to all our listeners out there, hope you're doing well. This is Dream Idiots. I am Morris, and the dulcet basso profundo over there is Bryan Treat. Each week we come to you with stories that we tell each other and surprise each other with, and sometimes gross each other out or make each other laugh. And you are along for the ride. This is episode 69 of the Dream Idiots.
Yes, we're cruising along. Thanks for listening and joining us again, and for doing all those things you've been doing for us online. If you haven't already, shoot us a 5-star review when you get a chance on whichever platform you're on. And 5 stars and a review would be great. You can check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Dream Idiots. You can email us at dreamidiotspodcast@gmail.com, and also check out Dream Idiots, www.dreamidiots.com for merch and all of our other stuff there. But thanks for tagging along and for doing all those things for us. We appreciate it.
You said you didn't have any updates when we were off mic before we got started. I only have one thing to say, and that is Amsterdam is the shit, and it was really hard for me to come back to the U.S. after spending a week in Amsterdam. It's really hard to get on that big old plane and come back, but I'm back. So
yes, when life in the States finally falls apart completely, you now know you have a short list of places to go where you can be. Yeah,
Amsterdam's one of them.
One of these top 3. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. It was pretty nice.
Yes,
no
I've heard good things.
No complaints from me. It only took getting almost knocked on my ass once, and by standing way too close to the bike lane to remind me that bikes are friggin' everywhere. And holy cow!
Yeah, but those cyclists, I'm sure, are also incredibly polite. They'd probably apologize to you for nearly hitting you.
Yeah, and of course they've got that beautiful polite bluntness that sorry, fat ass, as they go past you. So
right.
No, great town, really stunningly friendly people from all over the world. Nice city. Yeah, it was hard coming back, but here we are back for episode 69.
All right.
And you get to go first.
I do. And we are since we're actually recording this a couple days before it drops later on this evening, game 2 of the NBA Finals will tip off. And so for this week, kind of just in conjunction with the NBA Finals, we're going to do something I'm calling the Unfair Acronym Game, the NBA edition. And it'll be revealed as we go why this game is unfair, why it's called the Unfair Acronym Game. But
shit. Okay.
It's nothing gross. Don't worry.
No, I have images of a big train coming around the corner right at me. So
no, you'll be fine.
Okay.
So I have a number of questions here, and they're going to, broadly speaking, kind of get more difficult as we go. All about the NBA, and some of these I know, but they'll further us along as we go through the process. So all will be revealed here as we go. So question number 1.
Okay.
According to the National Basketball Association, which former player is known as the logo?
Jerry West.
Correct. LA Laker Jerry West.
Mm-hmm.
What is the height of the NBA basket? How high off the floor is it?
10 feet.
Mm-hmm. How far away is the free throw line?
10 feet? I have no idea.
Free throw line's 15 feet.
15 feet. Okay.
Yep. Overall dimensions of an NBA basketball court?
This far by that far?
Yeah. The overall length and width is
30 feet by 90 feet.
no, much bigger. 94 by 50.
Oh, okay, I was close.
How far? So free throw line's 15 feet. How far is top of the key?
Top of the key is 20 feet.
21 feet,
Okay.
actually. According to the NBA, how far out is the 3-point line? And there actually are two answers for this question.
Well, it's 21 feet at the top of the key. Right. And then out to the other side is 24 feet.
So actually, the 3-point line as it exists now in the NBA at the corners is 22 feet from the basket.
Okay.
But all the way out to the arc, so heading out toward midcourt is the full regulation 3-point line is 23 feet 9 inches for 3 seasons back in the early 90s. They moved it in and then they moved it back out again.
Okay.
Basically because Reggie Miller, I think, threw a fit and made fun of them. And so they moved it back out and said, 20, whatever it was for a while was a bullshit shot. And, he wanted it moved back out. So they did.
I'm clearly not a numbers guy.
I know you know the answer to this question. What former ABA teams are now in the NBA?
The Denver Nuggets, and they were the last of the ABA teams to not make the finals, and now they're there. They were the Denver Rockets at one point, but now they're the Denver Nuggets. The San Antonio Spurs, who were once the Dallas Chaparrals and the Texas Chaparrals. The Indiana Pacers, who were always the Indiana Pacers.
Right.
And then the old New York Nets, who became the New Jersey Nets, and now they're the Brooklyn Nets. Those were the 4 teams that came over from the ABA in the merger.
Correct. Yeah. So that the Spurs have been in the NBA Finals on 6 occasions, and they won 5 times. They lost in 2013 to the Heat, who were in the finals again. So now we have the Nuggets in the finals as well, and you alluded to this in your previous answer. What were the other occasions when one or more of these ABA teams made the NBA finals?
Let's see. The Nets and Spurs played each other once.
Yep, that's 2003. Right? Yep.
Okay. The Spurs beat the Pistons in 2005.
No, but I'm saying besides the Spurs and the Nuggets. So Pacers. Just the occasions Pacers.
The Nets
Pacers and
Nets. The Nets went 2 years in a row. Lost to the Lakers one year.
Correct. Lost in 2002.
And then the Pacers lost to the Lakers as well, I think.
Yeah, Pacers lost in 2000. The Nets lost to Lakers in 2002, and then lost to Spurs in 2003. So three losses in 4 years. So bonus question: according to the NBA, what's the difference between a coleopterist and a lepidopterist? And by the way, this is the National Butterfly Association. This is why it's unfair.
A lepidopterist collects butterflies. A coleopterist also collects moths. I don't know.
I'm of course you would fucking know this. Coleopterist collects and studies beetles. A lepidopterist, you're right, does butterflies. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there's a joke from the Venture Brothers where this guy comes up and they're trying to track down the archvillain, the Monarch, and these guys says, "Well, you might call us the lepidopterists." And the guy says, "You want to see my stamp collection?" And the guy just sighs and is like, "No, that would make us philatelists."
Yeah, very good. So which NBA player won the most NBA titles?
Oh, this is
back to National Basketball Association.
Right, it's back to real stuff. That would be Bill Russell.
Yep.
Yeah.
The shortest player ever to win a scoring title.
Scoring title?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Muggsy Bogues is pretty short, but I don't think he ever won a scoring title, did he?
He was super short, but yeah, that's not the right answer.
Allen Iverson?
Oh shit, you're right. Yeah, spot. Yeah, Allen Iverson's 6 feet even, which is microscopic in today's NBA. Which NBA player had the following stat line: 3 assists, 28 rebounds, including 10 offensive rebounds, no points.
Dennis Rodman.
Yeah. And then, yes. And then once for the Spurs, he had at least one game with the Spurs during that, whatever, 4-week span when he played for us, where he had 20 rebounds in a game and 0 points.
He had 20 rebounds, zero. I remember that game because he had 20 rebounds, 0 points, 2 assists, and 8 hair colors in one game. I remember that. Yeah.
So who's the only person to win the MVP, Coach of the Year, and Executive of the Year?
Oh, Coach of the Year,
MVP, Coach of the Year, and Executive of the Year, in that order.
Wow. Executive of the Year would be a big hint. Well, Jerry West, but I don't. Did he ever coach? Yeah. It is.
No, that's not correct.
Oh, it's not. Man, this is going to be one that's just easy, and I've totally blown it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that necessarily.
I have no idea. It's not Larry Bird.
Bird? Larry Bird. Yep.
Oh, gee, he was Coach of the Year?
Yep.
Oh,
wow. Shoot. I didn't look at what year.
It was when he was with had to be with the Pacers, right?
Oh yeah, right. So it was probably the year they went to the finals, I would guess, but I'm not sure. So who drafted Kobe Bryant straight out of high school?
Charlotte, I think.
Yeah. And they were pissed.
And they paid for it ever since.
Yeah. Having to have,
of course, now they're the New Orleans Hornets, New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh, I forgot about that because Charlotte maintained the whatever the name and the history, whatever
colors and
yeah, right. So, which NBA team had the longest winning streak in NBA history?
The Bulls.
That's what I would have thought. No.
Well, Lakers,
but very, very, very early. 71-72. I'm sorry, 71-72 Lakers. Yes. Won 33 games in a row.
That's right. Yeah.
4 players in league history have had a quadruple double.
Mm-hmm.
Name 2. Any 2.
Well, Akeem did it twice. David did it.
Yep.
God, I'm so old. I used to know this. Was it the dude for the was it the guy for the Nuggets? Somebody for the Pistons did it. Shit, I can't remember, man.
So name number 3, and I genuinely do not know who this is. Nate Thurmond.
Oh yeah, Nate Thurmond. Okay, all right.
So he was a Nugget or a Piston or what?
I recognize the name, but I don't. Yeah, I can't place it.
The 4th one was Alvin Robertson.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I'd forgotten that, but it's like, oh shit. Couple of quick questions about the slam dunk contest. Who won it?
I'm not going to get this.
Who won it in 2000?
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
That was the Vince Carter year, which was one of the very, very, very few slam dunk contests I actually watched on TV and was falling off my sofa like, holy sh! Because it was very, very impressive. And then of course 96 was the one you and I saw.
Oh, at the Alamo Dome. Yeah. That was won by Timmy Legler? No. Who won that one?
Brent Barry.
No. Brent Barry, that's right.
Yeah.
One of the Barry boys.
While still wearing his sweats. Like, why haven't you taken your sweats off? Like, dude. Okay, bonus question. According to the NBA, which 2 features are found on a schooner that are not found on a skiff? This is from the National Boating Association.
Jesus Christ. Schooner and not on a skiff?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, a second mast and a a trained little monkey that dances to a squeeze box. I don't know.
Well, you're right. Skiffs don't have mast or sails, but skiffs are just a little square-nosed,
Okay.
flat-bottom fishing
All right.
boat, and but schooners are sailing ships. Sorry, just fucking with you.
And was the monkey right too?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, huh?
no? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah, spot on. What jersey numbers did Jordan wear?
23
Mhm.
and then 45?
Correct. And then apparently for one game he wore number 12 because a jersey had been stolen. So
No, I don't remember that one.
yeah, so someone had to quickly throw a 12 together. Three different NBA players have won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same year. Name any of the three.
Shaq.
No.
No. Moses Malone?
No.
Wow,
Much more,
I'm whiffing it.
way
Much
more
more
recent.
recent.
Well, somewhat more recent,
Uh,
yeah.
oh, Akeem?
Hakeem is one of the three, yeah.
Okay. Okay,
And
I don't know
then
who the other two are.
Michael Jordan did it. I think Michael Jordan actually did it twice. And then
Okay.
more recently than that, Giannis and Antetokounmpo
Oh, yeah.
in like
Okay.
whatever in either 19 or 20, 19, I guess. So as you know, the three-pointer had its genesis in the old ABA,
Yep.
and actually was back. There's the American Basketball League before then, and then off and on in various other college level leagues,
hmm
whatever. Do you know what year the NBA actually decided to add the three-pointer?
It was after the merger,
Yes, it was.
81.
Ooh, very close. So first year, 79-80,
Uh-huh.
which was Magic and Bird's
Right.
rookie year. So first game, October 12th, 1979. Who was the first person in the NBA to ever make a NBA three-pointer? And it was a Celtics game, but it was not Larry Bird.
No, it probably wasn't Robert Parrish. JoJo White.
Chris Ford, remember him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because he
Yeah.
went back and coached. He was a coach.
Yeah. Yeah, because he was on at least one of their championship teams and then was an assistant and then
Head coach.
was head coach in the like very early 90s, I think, for
Yeah.
for quite a while, I think. So first part of this question is easy. Who is the career leader in 3 points? The 3-point shots made.
Well, it's not Dale Ellis. Reggie Miller.
No.
Is it Steph Curry? Is he already the
Yeah.
leader? Okay.
He is already the leader. And
Okay.
I had assumed, because I knew he was number one, and I had assumed that Reggie Miller was number two, because I just remember that guy being lights out. And Reggie Miller's number 4 on the list of career 3-pointers. Care to guess who number 2 and number 3 are?
Ray Allen.
Holy shit, that's right. Ray Allen's number 2. Yeah. I would never have thought that.
Uwe Blob. Remember him?
Yeah.
No.
Number 3 is technically still an active player. But is I believe is also a free agent at this point.
I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
James Harden is the career.
Oh, Jesus. Wow, yeah. That's a surprise. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And if you haven't, I watched, I don't know, the last 6 months or so, came across the Pacers-Knicks game in 95, I think, game 1 of that playoff series where Reggie Miller scores, I think it's eight points in 9 seconds or something.
Yeah.
And it's because I always hated the Knicks. I just remember falling off the sofa laughing at, my God, joke, worthless Knicks.
Was that the one where you walked by and slapped Spike Lee on the head as he was?
So did that, but also mimed choking, at Spike Lee as well. And Pacers won that series actually, and I think in 6 or 7 games. So always good when the Knicks lose. I'll edit this out.
I found some old ticket stubs of games I went to, and one of them was I was at a Spurs game where Dale Ellis hit his 1,000th three-pointer, and I found that ticket stub.
Oh wow!
And then I found a ticket stub at a game too I went to when. Do you remember how Moses Malone finished out his game with the Spurs?
I remember. I went to at least one game where he was still playing.
He hit a three-pointer by just chunking it from underneath the other basket. And just,
oh yeah, no, that was his last career basket or whatever.
I don't know what it was, but he was playing for the Spurs and he just chunked it. And I was walking off to the to the concession stand to get a beer or popcorn or whatever. It was at the Alamo Dome, I think. It was pretty funny.
Oh, and the on the 3-point list, the only Spur, or there are two Spurs in the top 50. Manu's at 49. There's one Spur above him. It's Patty Mills at 48.
Really?
Patty Mills? Yeah. So game 2 of the NBA Finals is tonight. Who's your pick to finish out the finals?
Well, it's actually already on.
I know.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I don't know. Nuggets in 6. I have no idea.
Yeah. I think actually Nuggets, I think, will sweep them. I think it's Nuggets in 4.
Yeah,
I think it'll be
Jokic he's unreal.
Yeah, it's freak show good. And the last bonus question, according to the NBA, what part of the pig is the tastiest? This is the National Bacon Association, by the way.
The rump.
No, the bacon. Duh.
Oh, okay. So it was a trick question.
That's a trick question.
Okay.
By the way, none of those associations actually exist.
They don't?
No. In case that wasn't obvious.
I did bring up. That was any more questions?
No.
Oh, that kicked my ass. I feel like I went through the ringer on that one, Brian.
Yeah. Well, you got Ray Allen for number 2. I was convinced that Reggie Miller was number 2 and that there was a big drop off, but Steph Curry is number 1 by like a 500 shot margin too. And the guy's only
all of them made in the last 2 seasons. It was anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, so a little NBA trivia for you this week.
He shot the ball. He shot the ball far. No, that's awesome. I love that kind of stuff, and I love the old. I love tracing where the old teams went and what they became, and I still think there's a Seattle Sonics team out there somewhere. I can't believe Seattle Sonics are gone. I had the pleasure of sitting behind them on I had the pleasure of sitting behind them on a Southwest flight of all things.
Mm-hmm.
No, so I sat behind I sat behind Sean Kemp, and then the coaches were sitting in the. Do you remember where they had the 6 seats facing each other?
Oh yeah.
There was a bunch of coaches. The players are playing some kind of card game back there, and Gary Payton was just giving Gary Weiss, that one of the assistant coaches, just all kinds of shit through the whole flight, just talking to him. He wouldn't even play. He's like, "What's the matter, coach? Why can't I play? Because I take all your money." And it was really funny. How come you don't invite me to play, coach? It was really good. Where Sean Kemp was just trying to sleep. Brian, is it that time of the show?
It is.
It's time for the Dream Idiots curse word of the week.
All right, I have for us the curse word of the week.
Okay.
And actually, because you've done such a good job bringing us the curse word of the week almost every week since we instituted this, I'm going to try to make up a little ground here. Ryan, I've got 7 curse words of the week this week.
Okay.
Can you guess what they are?
Are they dwarves? Are they members of the Jackson family? Are they I don't know.
They are not. They are George Carlin's original 7 words you can't say on television.
Yeah, sure.
Can you rattle those off for us? In order. No, I'm kidding.
Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, motherfucker.
2 more. And you're in order, by the way.
I learned cursing from the beginning. Shit, piss, mother. Tits is one.
That's the last one. The one you're missing is cocksucker.
Cocksucker.
Okay. Yeah. So what I'd like to talk about today is, since you and I have just alienated a whole bunch of people by rattling off these words, I'd like to talk a little bit about our nation's attempt to legislate obscenity in the United States because it's a hoot. When I taught mass media law and media First Amendment theory, the students couldn't wait to talk dirty. Once we got to obscenity, it was by far the most fun thing to talk about. So let's go through some of the ways that we've attempted to talk about obscenity in the legal sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we will come back around to George Carlin's 7 words you can't say on television in a little bit. Let's start with a Comstock Act of 1873. Do you remember what this was from your history books?
Oh, no, I don't. No, I don't.
Well, it made it illegal to use the U.S. Postal Service to send things like sex toys in 1873. I shudder to think what those were. To send sex toys, sexually explicit correspondence, so you couldn't write a dirty letter to your sweetie, contraceptives, or abortion medications. So you can send any of those things through the U.S. mail. If they found them, you could get prosecuted. Also in 1873, we had something called the Hicklin Rule. What was the Hicklin Rule? Well, let's take a listen to what, and I'm not going to talk about the cases in general, I'm just going to talk about the results. Obscenity was defined as this: anything that has a tendency to deprave or corrupt those who might be open to such immoral influences into whose hands it might fall. How does that sound to you? Anything that has
it's so completely vague and subjective and impossible. Right?
Yes, and that is aimed at 2 particular groups of people: children and overly sensitive people.
Right.
So you're dealing with kids or people who are busy clutching pearls, right?
Exactly,
To just
right.
absolutely, basically what it says.
You said what?
Yes. What basically what it's doing is it's saying that adults have to, by the nature of what it is, we all have to read that which is appropriate for children. That's what the Hicklin Rule basically says. And that's how it defined obscenity. And that for me is a little bit problematic, but that was the guiding principle for a long time when it came to obscenity cases in the United States. And the overly sensitive people, who knows what that means? At this point,
the original title of that Dr. Seuss book was Horton Here's a Cunt, just by the way.
Yeah, let's get that word out there a lot. So 1957, we get to something called the Roth Memoirs test. These are 2 separate cases, and it went on, is actually cases. This is a period of time, I believe, that went on from like 57 to 65. That's why it's called the Roth-Memoirs test. And what it did is this established a 3-part test to determine obscenity. So what I think is great about tracing obscenities is it shows how the law evolves, where some people will tell us that the things like the Constitution is fixed in a time and a space, and we have to be absolutist when it comes to the Constitution. But when we see the way that we think about obscenity, we see that no, things change over time, because we take into account things like changing morals and changing standards of the time. The first part of this test is 1, the dominant theme of the material taken as a whole appeals to an average interest in prurient interest in sex. So what this does in a change from Hicklin is that it uses the average person instead of using the kids or super sensitive people. So you and I probably wouldn't be the average person, because you and I can probably tolerate more vile things than most people can. But it takes that dominant theme of the material. In the Hicklin Rule, it could be 1 or 2 words could make the entire thing obscene. But this says, excuse me, it's the dominant theme of the material, and it appeals to an average prurient interest in sex. Part 2, it must affront contemporary community standards relating to sexual matters. So now they're trying to evergreen it, right? They're not trying to fix it in time and space. They're trying to say, okay, you've got to look at what the contemporary community standards say relating to sexual matters. And I think this is important because the community, well, you do get into the sticky issue of how do you define community, right? But it's also taking into account that if you live in New York City, the way you think about obscenity is going to be very different from how you think about obscenity in Peoria, Illinois, or Salt Lake City, Utah, or Austin, Texas, or Los Angeles, California. In part C, this is my favorite part of the Rothman-Morris test. Quote, the material is utterly without redeeming social value. It has absolutely no social value whatsoever. And again, nice try, but that's pretty vague. Right. I mean,
again, thoroughly subjective. So right. So again, so if it's that subjective, it's useless.
Yeah. And but I mean, yes, it is useless, but it is a vast improvement over the Hicklin rule. I mean, we can see the progress that's being made little by little. So we get to a test that comes from a case called Miller v. California in 1973. And this clarifies and expands upon the Rothman-Morris test. So we're making more and more progress. Again, 3 parts. Part 1, an average person applying contemporary local community standards finds that the work taken as a whole appears to prurient interest. And in this case, they're saying community usually equals state. So that's just one part of the test. So they've kind of taken everything from Rothman-Morris and said, okay, you can almost hear it in the judge's words. Okay, back up, everybody. An average person taking local community standards, let's call it the state, finds that the work taken as a whole appears to prurient interest. Part 2 of this test. The work depicts patently offensive sexual conduct as outlined by state law. So now they're getting real specific. Now there has to be state laws that are defining what is sexual conduct. So now they're getting into very specific stuff. And certain states, there are certain sexual acts that are against the law, right? So it's still appealing to this idea of state-oriented community standards. And here is the gem in the crown, the chef's kiss. Part 3, the lapse test. And I know you've heard of the lapse test. The work lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. And this is what makes Miller, California so interesting. That last one is really hard. It's a hard, sorry, I'm distracted by what a large Great Dane puppy is doing on the other side of the room. It's really hard to get past that last part, the lapse test. Because yes, you could say that the average person finds this offensive and that, oh my God, yes, they're showing us something that is definitely against the law in this state. But you can make all kinds of arguments to say that, well, they're trying to make an artistic statement or political statement.
Right.
Or perhaps there's a literary statement there going on. Or maybe we're just discussing the scientific nature of some kind of sex act. So it fulfills literary art, and it doesn't have to do all 4. It just has to do one of those 4. So Miller versus California really, when you think about it, makes it very hard to declare something obscene. And it's quite, really, when you think about it, an astonishing leap from where we started off with the Hicklin rule 100 years earlier. So I think it demonstrates that the law evolves, the law changes as we start to think about community values and community standards. So let's go to 1978. And the case we get to, and originally I just wanted to focus on this case entirely, but I kind of wanted to give the foundation of it instead. So now we know about the Hicklin rule, how we've changed, we feel about making us just read and look at things that are fit for kids. We look at the Rothman-Morris test. We've got Miller versus California. In 1978, WBAI, a Pacific radio station, part of the Pacifica radio family, aired a piece on the nature of language, and it included an uncensored section of comedian George Carlin's 7 words you can never say on television, where over the airwaves, George mentioned those 7 dirty words that you worked your way through earlier.
Right.
In order: shit, piss, fuck, cunt, motherfucker, cocksucker, tits, for those of you who missed that earlier part of the podcast. Now, what made this a problem was that this aired in the middle of the afternoon, and the FCC received exactly 1 complaint on this airing on the airwaves. 1 complaint from a motorist.
From an audience of, how many potentially were listening to it?
Oh, hundreds. thousands. I mean, it was a big radio station.
Right.
And one complaint came from a motorist whose young son happened to be in the car. And it was enough for the FCC to declare the material indecent, not obscene, but indecent, which is different. Now, the interesting thing about this historically is that these 7 dirty words, I mean, we're acting like these had not been heard on radio or television before. For example, Edward R. Murrow's sign off "Good night and good luck." The original version of that was "Good night and good luck. Now go fuck yourselves." Few people know that. And let's not forget that one of our favorite broadcasters for years, Walter Cronkite, would sign off with, "And that's the way it is, cocksuckers." People forget that about Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite. But the material overall was considered what they call a nuisance. But they argued that the context of how this happened was important. So the case ended up going before the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court found that the FCC was in the right in a 5-4 decision. What they argued was, in the concurrence, was the pervasive nature of the media provides a captive audience until the dial can be turned. Because you don't need much to get a radio to come in. All you need is a receiver, right? And you could get a receiver with a piece of wire and a cat whisker and a little piece of galena. I mean, you could make your own radio out of a cardboard box and some very basic pieces.
Right.
Second argument was that the time of the broadcast made access by young children very, very easy, that it was in the middle of the day, and that they found problematic. Now, in dissent, Justices Brennan and Marshall found that, one, the government may not shield minors from indecent language unless that language is found to be constitutionally obscene, unless they're talking about things that are defined as obscene material. Also, this responsibility is not of the government, but of the parents. That's what their argument was.
Right.
And they also argued that the FCC objected to the way that Carlin's point of view was expressed and not the content itself. They're saying that the FCC was saying, well, it was the fact that it was in this monologue embedded in this radio program. It was the expression of it and not the actual content. I mean, regardless, the 5-4 decision upheld with the FCC. And after this, it was, I believe, where the safe harbor time was established from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And you might remember this from our radio days.
Right.
And folks who are listening here who haven't worked in radio, but you might have grown up listening to FM radio, you might remember, like, in the middle of the day, you might hear Pink Floyd's Money, for example. And there's a line in there that says, "Do goody good bullshit." Mm-hmm. Well, if you're in the middle of the day,
2 p.m., you're not going to hear that.
You won't hear bullshit. They'll bleep it out, or they'll turn the volume down, or they'll have it'll just kind of fade out real quick. But after 10 p.m., you will probably hear bullshit. You'll hear the word bullshit. So the safe harbor time, and it is gone in flux from early as 8 p.m. to as late as midnight to 6, 10 to 6, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. But you might hear more adult language in the safe harbor time. Now, all of this has changed in light of the fact that we have satellite radio now, and we have multiple cable channels. We don't think about the broadcast spectrum the way we used to anymore. We don't think about broadcast and television and radio being invasive anymore. In a later case called Action for Children's Television versus the FCC in 1995 actually did move the safe harbor time back from midnight to 6 a.m. Regardless, all of these cases stand as kind of real focal points for the discussion of obscenity and how we think about obscenity in this country. And that has obviously changed when all of us have streaming services and all these other things where people get upset when they hear, cursing and bad language and stuff. Right. Well, you're inviting that into your home when you sign up for a cable subscription service. Right. I mean, what you're getting into. You don't want it, block the channel. It was a vastly different creature when you're dealing with, if you're in your average market, you might have the big 3 networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, and, they're all potty mouths over there. Plus, Yeah, plus you might have a mom and pop independent station, and then you lived in certain markets. You're also going to have maybe a Spanish language station on one of the other things. So you could have 6 or 7 different stations you can pick up on your television, right?
Right.
But when it comes to that kind of thing, we really don't think about it in those terms anymore because the delivery systems have changed so much in terms of how we get our entertainment. But I think looking back on this history of obscenity, the one thing it does do is it helps show how, yeah, things like how we feel about language legally has changed over the years, and the law does change, and our sense of the Constitution as a flexible document changes with that, right?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I'm also reminded of the fact, and I don't know that we've ever talked about this or not, but when I lived in Salt Lake for a year, we couldn't get Saturday Night Live.
Seriously? I mean, Saturday
Yeah.
Night Live is just about the most milquetoast, innocuous. I mean, it's on late. There's no cussing on Saturday Night Live, is there at all?
Well, because the NBC affiliate, KSL, was owned by the LDS Church.
Okay. So they could
So,
just put the kibosh on it and say, no bueno.
well, and if you think about it, I mean, yes, but in a way, they could argue that according to the 1934 Telecommunications Act, we are operating in our public's best interest,
right,
convenience,
our
and
local
necessity.
standards.
Because a local standards community, in general, our population is not interested in that kind of entertainment. And so what happened is, after about a year of this, I think it was this one of the, I don't think it was CW, but one of the other independent networks that came about, like what would become the CW or the WB or one of those, bought that block out. And so if we wanted to watch Saturday Night Live, we would watch it literally on another network in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
It would be, you tune to the WB, channel 38.
At 10:30, everyone changes channels. Right?
Yeah, you watch the NBC News, and then they'd be like, "Stay tuned for reruns of My Mother the Car," and you would flip over at 10:30 to channel 38, the WB, for Saturday Night Live, which was really kind of strange.
Yeah.
But I mean, in a way, you could argue that that NBC affiliate, KSL, was really following the Pecan model of public interest, convenience, and necessity by doing that. So,
right. Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I find it interesting, and in a day and age where we still fight over language and what it means, and that you can trace this history of obscenity legislation back so far, and just kind of see where we came from and where we stand today. So that's what I got.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, well, I mean, this seems, at least in part, to be related to the nonsense that everyone's fighting about these days about being woke and drag shows being thought over. I mean, I guess it's not strictly analogous, but I'm always just sort of blown away by this kind of new rise in people clutching their pearls. Like, okay, so if drag shows don't interest you, don't go to the drag show. Well, what's the problem? I mean, literally as an undergrad, I remember doing a presentation in a speech communication class while an undergrad, discussing the work of Robert Mapplethorpe, who is way out there in terms of imagery, etc. And by all means, Google Robert Mapplethorpe if you've never heard of the man before. But really, pretty extreme, gay imagery that offended a lot of people, and he was sort of castigated for putting things out there that seemed to be crude, outside the norm. And again, it's not stuff that appealed to me, but I will never ever be the person who says that my standards or my tastes get to rule what everyone else gets to view or listen to or watch. But I remember, again, for those who don't know or are listening to this, Morris and I went to a fairly conservative school, not religiously, I mean, out there conservative, but socially conservative. And I remember having classmates at Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas, who were, I wouldn't say outraged, but who thought my position was ridiculous. That I would say that this person was entitled to express themselves. Of course they're entitled to express themselves. If you don't like it, don't go to that art exhibit. Why is this hard? I'm not endorsing it. I'm not saying it's fabulous. I'm saying this person has the right to say this. Why are your standards more important than mine? Why do you get to clutch your pearls and deem something offensive? And then, if you don't like it, therefore no one gets to enjoy it. Okay.
Yeah, and I remember when what was that movie? Last Temptation of Christ came out.
Oh yeah.
And I went to go see it at the old it's not Wonderland Mall. What was it called? Crossroads
Mall. Right.
At the old Bijou Theater there at Crossroads Mall. And I remember getting hit with a picket sign and spit on for going to see it. I mean, It was like, look, don't follow me in. Did you get a ticket? You can't follow me in. You can't come in with me. It'll be fine. All will be well. And I found myself more in a situation where, like, just watching over, like when I was on the plane over Denmark, I saw somebody watch two horrible movies in a row, and I'm more inclined. Part of me got it's like, why are you watching 80 for Brady? Turn that crap off. Watch something else. And then I realized, no, you
Paul Blart Mall Cop. What are you doing?
you are perfectly free to watch whatever shit you want to watch.
Right.
I'm going to sit here and watch Chernobyl, and I did, and it wasn't that funny. But
not that funny. Yeah.
It was very good. But when we start substituting our own tastes for what other people can see and do and read, and I mean, it's frustrating and sad. When it involves the public airwaves, though, that's something entirely different. I mean, that to me is something different, because we forget that when it comes to those broadcast stations, they were given these licenses by the government to operate in our best interest as a whole.
Right.
And
Right,
and
sure.
that's an entirely different beast, from a different model, from a different area, when different era, when the bandwidth was not what we thought it was, or limited towards our technological capacities back in the 30s and 40s. So now that we've run off everybody but except the most dedicated tech and broadcast folks, anyway, that's what I got. And there you
Nice.
go. A brief history of obscenity legislation.
Yeah, very
in
cool.
The US.
Yeah, super interesting stuff. And with
I always
podcasting
thought so.
now, yeah, I mean, I recall vividly people being excited to go into the class where this was going to be discussed.
Just piss shit, just really happy.
We get to say tits. Yeah, I guess if you want.
Yeah, knock yourself out there, champ. That's
right, because we're all juvenile delinquents. Okay, well done.
All right. Well, on that note, if basketball is your thing, enjoy the finals. If cursing is your thing, enjoy doing that. Just keep on doing what you like, as long as it doesn't hurt other people.
Yep, keep on trucking. Thanks for listening, folks. We appreciate it. If you get a chance, please go online, shoot us a review, shoot us a 5-star rating. It helps us climb those charts. Thanks for those reviews. Recently, I had a bunch of new good ones. That's always nice. And at Dream Idiots on Facebook, at Dream Idiots on Instagram. You can go to dreamidiots.com and drop us a line sometime. dreamidiotspodcast@gmail.com. Give us a curse word. Give us. We actually had a couple topic ideas come through via email of late. So reach out and say, hey, we appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thanks, folks. Go Nuggets, and be good to each other.
Bye.
This is a Rough Tiger production.
Bong bong. Bryan.
Bong bong?
Bong bong.
Bong bong. Good.